All right. Thank you all for joining us today to hear a little bit more about the program. Sorry, there we go. So just to kind of give an overview of what we're going to go over, we're going to talk a little bit more about folklore, what folklore is, what the Texas Folklore Society does, and then we'll go into a little bit more detail about the Legends and Lore program and how to apply for the Legends and Lore markers. So I wanted to start off, I know some of you are members of the Texas Folklore Society, so that's great. But I also see a lot of new names. So just a little bit of background about the Texas Folklore Society. I am the executive director of the Texas Folklore Society. I didn't say that for those of you who don't know me. My name is Christina Downs. My full title is Executive Director / Secretary Editor for the Texas Folklore Society. I am also a faculty member at Tarleton State University, where the Texas Folklore Society is currently headquartered. The Texas Folklore Society is the oldest continually operating state folklore organization in the U.S. We are also the largest state folklore organization in the United States. I will admit I don't actually have numbers on that, but I have been working in the field of folklore studies for about 20 years now, and I'm familiar enough with all of the other state folklore organizations to be fairly confident saying that we are the largest. One of the things that makes us unique among a lot of the folklore societies within other states is that our organization is composed of both professionals like myself. You know, I have a PhD in folklore. This is my career. We have other working professionals in the field of folklore, but the majority of our members are more so hobbyists, people that just love folklore, that want to get together to learn more about folklore, to talk about folklore, to share the folklore that they're familiar with. And so we're pretty much welcome to anybody that wants to come and talk about folklore of Texas and the Southwest. This is our mission statement. We collect, preserve, and share the practices and customs of people of Texas and the Southwest. Our role, we are a membership organization, and I like to think of us as sort of there to help other people study folklore. So I study folklore myself, but my role in the executive director is to sort of facilitate the study of folklore and the documentation of folklore and the sharing and preservation of Texas folklore. I skipped over one of the things I was going to tell, one of my favorite stories about the Texas Folklore Society. We were founded in 1909. It's a great Texas story because we were founded following a football game on Thanksgiving Day between the University of Texas and Texas A&M. There's a professor from each of those universities that got together to come up with the idea. To go a little bit more about what we do a lot of small programs, but our two big things that we do on a regular basis is that we hold an annual meeting. Our next one is going to be in April in San Marcos. There's more information about that on our website if you're interested in learning more. We are still accepting submissions for presentations. So usually our presentations are about 20 minutes. Information about how to submit that you can also find via our website. Those will be open until October 15th. We also publish books. We've been publishing a book most every year with some gaps here and there for world wars and pandemics and assorted other things since 1916. Most of our books, I'm going to go back to this in a little bit, but most of our books are available for free online. You can find those linked through our website. They're hosted by the Portal to Texas History. But those are our books from 1916 to I think about 2005. I always forget what year they end, but those are available, and they're a great resource if you want to know more about Texas folklore. But we also, I just wanted to put up an announcement. We have a book coming up, probably coming out in 2027. So it's not our next book. We always have more than one book in the planning stages, but this book is going to be on legends. Since legends is one of the things related to this Roadside Marker program, I wanted to go ahead and mention that. And we have been had the deadline for that set at August 15th, but we are officially extending that to September 15th in the hopes that maybe some of you all are interested in submitting. Again, you can find information about that via our website, which is texasfolkloresociety.org. It's also hosted on our Facebook page. Another thing I wanted to just kind of go over a little bit is what is folklore? So we study folklore, but what is that? I find that a lot of people have some concept of what folklore is, but often it's a little bit more narrow than what we really look at. Um, a lot of times people think of something like this, a scene like this, when they think about folklore. They think about a rural setting, an older person telling a story, folk tales, legends, any of those kinds of things. Absolutely, that's folklore. We, have a great storytelling tradition in Texas. We have all, there's been a lot of this, but we have more than that too. And there is a lot more to folklore than just that. So, material traditions like quilting. This quilt was actually made by one of my great grandmothers. Uh, or folk music, also very much a part of folklore, traditional dance, um, food. This is one of my favorite forms of folklore because it tastes good. But there I have a bowl of chili, but also things like those uh, way that the young people will mix different sodas together at a soda machine in order to create some new creation. That's also folklore. It doesn't have to be really old stuff. Tailgating traditions, uh, cat memes. I think there's lots of internet folklore. With the Legends and Lore Roadside micro program, we're not so much looking at the internet folklore, so I do want to put that caveat there. But as far as the Texas Folklore Society goes, we are interested in all of it. So um, there's a broad range of things that fall under the heading of folklore. My quick and easy definition I always give to my students when I teach folklore is that folklore is traditional expressive culture. What I mean by folklore being traditional, a lot of people hear traditional and they think old. It doesn't have to be old. It just means that it's happened more than once and that there is a meaning attached to the fact that it's happened more than once. My go-to example on this is the fact that I hit my snooze button on my alarm at least 2 to 3 times every morning. That isn't a tradition because there's no meaning behind it other than the fact that I should go to bed earlier. But if I were to maybe hit the snooze button so that I could spend 5 minutes in prayer or meditation, that might be a tradition then that, would have that special heightened meaning attached to it. When I say that folklore is expressive, I mean that it always communicates something. And sometimes that's something really direct, that's really easy to see, something like the moral at the end of a fable: slow and steady wins the race. Don't count your chickens before they hatch. Sometimes it's more subtle than that. Sometimes it's a story will just kind of tell us about how we're supposed to live our lives. Sometimes it's as simple as this is what we consider beautiful. This is what we consider good food. But it is communicating something about both the individual that's doing it and the groups that they belong to. And then when I say that folklore is culture, I mean that it is always connected to a group. It can be practiced as an individual. So a one person all by myself, I can practice folklore. I can, I don't quilt, but if I did quilt, I could quilt. I do crochet, a traditional craft. But I learned to do that because of a tradition from the groups that I'm part of. So there is always a group connected to it. Those can be as big as a nation, or that group could be as small as 2 people. They can be based on geography. They can be based on career group. They could be based on an ethnicity. There's a lot of different ways that people form groups that they practice folklore with. Defining folklore is really hard. It's kind of like defining art. There's kind of a sense of what it is, but it can be tricky. So one of the things I find helpful with my students is to kind of give some characteristics of things you tend to see in folklore. Not all folklore has all of these characteristics, but most folklore has most of these characteristics, if that's helpful. Folklore is usually informal. So it's something that we do every day. It's the very commonplace, the stuff we do in relaxed settings. Not always, but usually. It's non-institutional. So something that gets brought up a lot. People ask me if religion is folklore. And usually the way we would define it is that the practice of an official religion is not necessarily folklore, but there's a lot of folklore associated with religion. So something like an annual church picnic, that would absolutely be folklore. There's nothing in the church liturgy that says, on the Sunday after Memorial Day, you have to have a picnic and these are the things you have to serve. But churches have those very deeply ingrained, meaningful traditions related to that. Folklore is grassroots. That means it's from the bottom up. Historically, people used to think about that as meaning it was poor people. It's not. That's not how we see it nowadays. What we mean by grassroots is that it is people that are deciding what they want to practice, not someone in a suit in an office somewhere that runs a focus group and decides what the folklore is going to be for this year. It's people decide this within their communities, and it goes up from there. Again, folklore is always shared by a group. Even if an individual practices it by themselves, it is usually part of a group. And there are variations in it. When you hear a story that's a folk story, every different storyteller is going to put their own spin on it. There's going to be some changes in detail. So this is a good way sometimes of distinguishing between official history and legend. Is official history, we have all the facts, right? We know exactly what happened, or we know exactly what we don't know. And every account is going to be more or less the same. There will be shifting perspectives, obviously. But if it's a legend, one person might say this story happened in one place, and another person might say, no, it was actually a couple of miles away at this other place, or might change the people involved. When you get those variations, that's a good sign that you're dealing with a folk narrative. Hold on, sorry, I lost my mouse. There we go. Because of the nature of folklore, sometimes finding sources to back it up can be a little bit tricky. It doesn't mean you don't need sources to back up your folklore. Sometimes my students are like, but it's folklore, I don't have to have sources. That's not how it works. Primary sources are great if you can find them. One thing to keep in mind is that especially when you're looking at something like a primary source for these legends and lore applications, or for anything folklore related in general, you're not trying to prove that the story is true. You're trying to prove that it's folklore. So for example, in my hometown, we have a legend that's been told for a long time, and we can document that story was being told at least since the 1930s. Incidentally, we know the facts of the story are completely false, but we don't let that get in the way of a good story. But we know that story has been being told for almost 100 years. So whether it's actually history or not, it's definitely folklore. That's definitely a story that we can prove and we can back up. So primary sources would include things like oral histories or interviews or diaries, meaning written by the people involved, or by people that have been involved in the telling of this folklore, or the enacting of this folklore if you're dealing with something like a festival or something. You could also find scholarly sources, so books that are by academic presses or academic journals. There's a lot of, there's the Journal of American Folklore, the Journal of Folklore Research. Obviously, I mentioned all of the Texas Folklore Society publications. They're maybe not exactly scholarly. They're a little more in the popular vein, but they are also great sources of folklore. Unfortunately, if you don't work for a university or you don't work for a library, a lot of those academic journals in folklore are going to be something you would have to pay to access. But if you don't have access to it, I would recommend checking with your local library. They may have access to it, or they may be able to find a way to get it from another library so that you can access it that way. And then other, what I always call with my students, credible sources. So there's a lot of information out there these days, and some of it is more reliable than others. So you can look at things like newspapers and magazines. Usually those are pretty good. Again, you're looking to prove that this exists as folklore, not so much whether it's true or not. Some websites, what you want to be careful of is, random person's blog. If they're telling a story and no one else seems to be telling that story, it's very possible that person is just a really good creative writer and they're not documenting folklore. Doesn't mean that is what's going on, but you need to find more documentation than just, one random thing. A good thing when you're looking at websites to check is if you find the same thing on 10 different websites, check and see if it's the exact same text on 10 different websites, because it might just be that one person made it up and 10 people copied and pasted it. which is actually kind of how folklore works, but it can be a little questionable as a source. So try to trace what your sources were. If you're finding something off of a website, where did that website get that information? Did they go find some primary sources on it, or did they just make it up? So it can be a little bit tricky, but there are a lot of sources. And if you're having trouble, you can always reach out to us at the Folklore Society. We would be happy to help. And I would be willing to bet the Pomeroy Foundation might help too. And this is our contact information. Our email address is texasfolkloresociety@gmail.com. Our website is texasfolkloresociety.org. So pretty easy to remember. And you can also, I strongly recommend if you're not already, if you're interested in Texas folklore, following our Facebook page. We have a really active Facebook page that has a lot of great information about not just what we're doing as an organization, but about folklore throughout the state and events throughout the state that might be of interest to people interested in folklore. So on that note, I am going to hand things over to Emma, who's going to talk a little bit more about the Legends and Lore program specifically.
Right. Here's my slides. Okay, so hi everyone. As as was mentioned before, I'm a research historian and engagement associate at the William G. Pomeroy Foundation. I evaluate grant applications, guide applicants in locating primary source documentation, revise marker inscriptions, author descriptions for the Pomeroy Foundation's marker map, and among other responsibilities. My other responsibility is to expand the reach of the Pomeroy Foundation's marker programs by forging connections with potential partners and applicants. I'm also the Foundation's Legends and Lore liaison, and I'm so excited to be here today and talk about our program. Our Legends and Lore Marker Grant program helps communities recognize and celebrate their unique folklore and storytelling traditions. So the William G. Pomeroy Foundation is a private philanthropic organization based in Syracuse, New York. It was founded by Bill Pomeroy, an entrepreneur and philanthropist who combined two lifelong passions, improving outcomes for blood cancer patients and helping communities celebrate their local history. Bill started the foundation while he was battling acute myeloid leukemia. He wanted to make a difference for others facing similar challenges, and that's the first part of our mission. The second part comes from Bill's love of history, which began during childhood road trips with his father. They would stop to read roadside historical markers together, and those experiences made a lasting impression. Years later, Bill discovered that New York State had discontinued its marker program. He stepped in to help, launching our very first marker grant initiative, which became the springboard for everything we do today. Since 2005, we have funded almost 2,900 historical markers across the United States. We offer 6 signature marker grant programs in addition to marker programs funded through partnerships with nonprofit, municipal, and academic organizations. So why are roadside markers important to the community? Well, they inform people about their local heritage and the stories, customs, and traditions that have been passed down from generation to generation. They make people proud of where they come from. They celebrate the heritage and shared identity of local communities, which in turn encourages a sense of belonging. They attract media coverage and generate social media attention. These markers also promote tourism and can entice people to gather for dedication ceremonies. Now I'll pass it over to Steve to talk more about marker dedication ceremonies and their impact on the community.
Thank you, Emma. My name is Steve Bodner, and I am the Associate Director for Strategic Marketing at the Pomeroy Foundation. And a large part of my role is working directly with grant recipients on their marker dedication ceremonies. As Emma said, markers bring people together, they spark curiosity, and dedication ceremonies are a wonderful way to do that. While there's a lot of common themes with dedication ceremonies, no two dedications are alike. We've seen everything from parades to talks, performances, tours. They're a wonderful opportunity to invite community partners, local dignitaries, descendants, public officials. It's a time when proclamations are read, remarks are given. It's just a really exciting and fun time to engage the community around what you're commemorating. And it's really a milestone in the timeline of getting your marker. It's something that folks treasure, and it really opens up the door for more conversations and more markers for folks to really take pride in their community's folklore. And I'll turn it back over to Emma.
Yeah. Thanks so much for that insight, Steve. And when you install a marker, you're not just preserving the past, you're creating something meaningful and lasting for future generations, as Steve was saying. Okay. Our Legends and Lore program commemorates the rich folklore, traditions, and storytelling that shape a community's identity. Our marker grants are fully funded and cover the entire cost of the marker, pole, and shipping. To be eligible for these grants, applicants must be a 501(c)(3) organization, a nonprofit academic institution, or a local, state, or federal government entity. Our Legends and Lore markers are characterized by their red and beige color scheme with a sun and moon icon at the top. Our markers are 3 by 2 feet cast aluminum with a 7-foot aluminum pole. Our goal is to offer Legends and Lore in all 50 states and Washington, D.C. Right now, Legends and Lore markers are available in 15 states, including Texas. Each state, we've partnered with a folklore-related nonprofit that promotes the program, reviews applications. We don't have folklorists on staff, so these partnerships are essential. Our official partner for Texas Legends and Lore applications is the Texas Folklore Society. We are so grateful to Christina for her leadership and support. If you know of a qualified folklore organization in a state not yet participating, please contact us. We're always looking to expand. Now let's review some of the subject matter guidelines for Legends and Lore markers. Successful marker applications fall within the categories of folktales, legends, and folk life. Folktales are fictional stories passed down about people or events not proven to have existed. Stories passed down that are popularly regarded as historical, although not verifiable, are known as legends. And folk life is characterized as traditions such as music, skills, crafts, and events passed along within a community. They often involve real people that can be verified with primary sources. But not every subject is a fit for this program. Applications that focus on historical events without a folkloric aspect are typically not successful. Similarly, well-known or legendary individuals don't qualify unless their story includes a meaningful folklore component. Purely literary creations or personal family stories that haven't extended into broader community tradition also fall outside the scope. The key is that the story must be part of shared community memory or a tradition passed down over time. Now let's take a look at some of our existing Legends Lore markers. So here's a photo of our brand new marker for Jimenez Hall, the first ever Texas Legends and Lore marker. The Colonia Jimenez was a group in Melvin, Texas, which descended from early settlers hailing from Villa de Jimenez, Coahuila, Mexico. A patriotic board was organized in 1914 to organize the observation of patriotic celebrations. A building constructed in the late 1920s served as a dance hall and meeting center for the Colonia. The original structure burned down, and the building that stands today was erected in the late 1930s. During patriotic celebrations, a queen and attendants were selected to begin festivities with a march to a traditional song. Families sold tamales and drinks from booths set up outside, and these festivals brought people from McCullough and surrounding counties together in a full display of cultural tradition and life that boldly proclaimed a successful Mexican implantation and community resilience in McCullough County. The folkloric element of this application is not the existence of the building and its activities. Those are the historical facts. It is the folk-like aspect that the community retained in its connection to Villa de Jimenez in Mexico, and how it continued to support the activities that it had pursued in Mexico. This marker was only recently manufactured, so it's not in the ground yet, but keep an eye out for its dedication ceremony on November 1st in Melvin, Texas. All right, the Bear Lake Monster Marker is located in Garden City, Utah, in the Bear Lake Valley. A legend has persisted that recalls stories of sightings of a monster lurking in Bear Lake. The tale of Bear Lake Monster grew after Joseph C. Rich, a Mormon church leader, reported secondhand accounts of sightings of a snake-like creature in the lake in 1868. Rich admitted that his claim was a phony marketing ploy, but the legend of the Bear Lake Monster has continued to be retold ever since. With sporadic sightings of the monster continuing to the present, the story serves for community members as a sort of cautionary water tale, as well as a fondly recalled local anecdote. This fictional story is a good example of a folktale or a frequently told fictional story about people or events not proven to have existed. One of our most popular legends and lore markers, Betsy's Bride, is a prime example of a legend. The tale takes place during the American Revolution in late 1775, when British troops began to close in on North Carolina. On December 8th, on the Currituck Banks just across the border from Virginia, the Doughty family received information that the British were marching down the coast. Word needed to reach General William Skinner, commander of the nearest North Carolina militia, but he was at home in Hertford, over 40 miles away. 16-year-old Betsy Doughty overheard the news and decided to act. Without telling her family, Betsy snuck out of the house, mounted her Spanish Mustang, Black Bess, and galloped into the cold, rainy night across the North Carolina countryside to reach General Skinner's home in Hertford and relay the urgent news of the British advance. The militia subsequently defeated the British, and Betsy was thanked by George Washington for her commitment to American freedom. Although this story seems real, it cannot be officially verified, therefore it's a legend. The White Lightning Road has a long history as a stagecoach road through a rural area of Louisiana, once dotted with illegal moonshine stills. Local farmers who grew corn for livestock feed and family food reserved some for use in making corn liquor. The moonshine was sold to provide cash to the distillers, who usually failed to pay the federal excise tax on whiskey manufacture. Local ordinances also prohibited the production of alcohol for sale. Violations meant U.S. Marshals, federal revenue officers, and deputy sheriffs spent considerable time tracking down the stills. This marker is another example of a legend or a community story that is properly regarded as historical but not verifiable. Please check out our online marker map for more information. We strongly encourage applicants to look at this webpage for inspiration on their legends and lore marker applications. Now for a brief overview of the application process. We'll also drop a PDF guide in the chat to help you with navigating the application process. The first step is to go to our website, wgpfoundation.org, and navigate to the Legends and Lore webpage. Then click the yellow Apply for Grant button. Our online grant application portal allows you to log in with an existing account or create a new one. The email you provide when creating your account will serve as your username for future logins. Foundation correspondence will be sent to this email, so please make sure it is an email account that is regularly monitored. Below the contact information is a section titled Designated Property Information. Please be sure to carefully read all of the introductory instructions and guidelines at the beginning of this section. When you fill out your proposed marker inscription text, the title line allows for 15 characters, and then there are 5 lines of body text which can have 27 characters each, including spaces and punctuation. Each Legends and Lore marker includes 2 mandatory credit lines below the inscription for the foundation and the state folklore partner. Do the best you can writing your proposed inscription, but know that foundation staff will be able to assist you with wording. In the next section, add details about the location where the marker will be installed. Please include a specific description of what's included at the site today. For example, is the marker being installed in front of a house, at a cemetery, or on the southeast corner of an intersection? In the second part of the location section, please make sure to enter the proposed marker site's GPS coordinates. To locate the GPS coordinates, we recommend using Google Maps, and we can help with this as needed, of course. And next, in 1 or 2 paragraphs, you'll describe the legend or folklore story associated with your proposed marker inscription. This is very important. It's your chance to share with us why your story is interesting and important, especially to your community. The foundation requires a letter signed by the landowner demonstrating that your agency, pending grant approval, has permission to install a marker on the selected site. If the land is owned by a municipality or another agency, please have them use their official letterhead. Property lines may be tricky to identify, so please make sure you look them up on Google Maps to confirm who owns the land. Seek permission from the landowner as soon as possible, as this part may take a while. Here you'll also indicate how you'll be providing your required documents. Successful applicants include supporting documents in their application which demonstrate that their proposed inscription is a valid example of a legend or folklore according to criteria as stated on our website. And as Christina said, supporting documentation includes academically accepted stories, websites, local history publications, newspaper articles, oral histories or interviews. Please be sure to provide scanned copies of documents, not just indexes or citations. Applications submitted without supporting documentation are less likely to be approved. There are 2 locations in the application where you can upload files. Please keep in mind that our system only allows 1 document upload per location, so you must merge the various sources into 1 document before uploading. Now you're done. Hit submit and we will be in touch. And please remember, we want you to be successful and we'll do all we can to ensure that you are. Your application will then be reviewed by the Foundation's folklore consultant and your state partner. Here in Texas, that's the Texas Folklore Society. They may contact you with questions or suggestions to strengthen your submission. After review, applications are presented to the Foundation's trustees for final approval. Please note that this process typically takes about 4 months. We have 2 application rounds per year. The next opens on August 25th, and the first grant round of 2026 opens on March 9th. You're invited to apply for up to 5 markers per grant round as well. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out directly. You can contact me at emacdowell@wgpfoundation.org. We're happy to support you throughout the process, from brainstorming ideas to finalizing your inscription. Now let's open it up for your questions. We'd love to hear what stories you're thinking about sharing with your community.
Thank you, Emma. For all of the attendees, feel free to drop a question in the chat, or if you'd like to raise your hand, we can unmute you to ask a live question. And to just get things started, I have a question for Christina. For the next upcoming grant rounds, are there any topics that you'd really like to see get a Legends and Lore marker?
That's a great question. I haven't put a whole lot of thought into an answer though. I mean, we have so many great stories in Texas, so I would love to see. There's a lot that I would love to see commemorated. I personally do research on Texas outlaw legends. So if somebody wanted to submit one on the outlaw legends in your community, I would love to see that. Another thing that I've wanted to see a marker for a while are the Texas Kolache, otherwise known as Koblesniki, which were a Texas adaptation of a Central European pastry. So I'd love to see something like that. Um, yeah, we'd really just love to see lots of submissions.
Yeah, sounds really cool.
That's great. Thank you. And we have a message in the chat here. Did I understand that more than one submission is allowed?
Yeah, and I can answer that real quick. So yes, we do allow more than one submission from one group. We allow up to 5 per grant round. So yes, the answer is yes for that one. Mm. Any other questions right now?
And so, as a reminder to everybody, I just shared our how to apply guide. It's a PDF in the chat for everyone to browse and reference at your convenience when you're considering applying. It takes you step by step, in depth, going through the same type of process that Emma just walked us through. So, feel free to use that when you're applying, but of course, reach out if you have questions. And any other questions that you'd like to drop in the chat? Okay, we have another one from Becky. How many markers are funded per cycle?
Yeah, it's a good question. So there's not an exact number. We fund an unlimited amount, so whichever ones are approved by our evaluators and historical researchers um are funded. So if they get to that point and the trustees approve them, yeah, they would be funded. So there's not an exact amount, but it's yeah, we have an unlimited um amount for people.
Oh, there's a ton of folk. We don't have any markers related to the oil boom, but I would love to
Mhm.
see some. There's a lot of great stories I know. One of my predecessors in the job running the Folklore Society, Modi Boatwright, did a lot of work on folklore in the oil industry. We have a couple of books related to that that the society has published. I would love to see that. It's not something I'm really knowledgeable about, but I'd love for us to, it's a huge part of Texas culture, so I'd love to see some more of that.
Absolutely.
And we have a few other questions coming in. What if I want to apply, but I'm not directly affiliated with a qualified organization? Any suggestions?
Yeah, we have several suggestions. So some of the qualifying organizations are different nonprofits, could be an academic organization or a local folklore group. And so just reach out to different cultural organizations in your area or any historical groups as well might help. So yeah, that's definitely an option.
I know in Texas, most counties have like a local historical society.
Yeah,
You can reach out to groups like that.
absolutely. Yeah, thank you.
Geronimo was asking about the school where LBJ taught. I think that what you want to do is make sure that there's a folkloric element to it, not just a historical element. So, um, just the fact that there was a school where he taught is very cool, but that in and of itself is more historical marker territory. So for a legends and lore marker, you would want to see um, there we go. Hometown Heritage Program would be a great one to cover that. But if there are like legends about things he did while working there or things like that, that might get you into legends and lore territory.
And I see a question about access to this recording. Yes, we will make this recording available to all the attendees and the public. So stay tuned for a follow-up email in the days to come. All right. So we do have a few more questions coming in. How long after applying is the marker finished? So that is getting into the manufacturing timeline, which is about 10 to 12 weeks at this point.
Yeah.
But that's after that timeline would be after it's approved, right? So then it takes a while for the
Yes,
application to be
yeah, and it
processed.
takes quite a while to get approved, just with the evaluation process and going through vetting with our folklore consultant and then our partner folklore organization. So yeah, it's a few months to do that, and then it takes a little bit longer to manufacture it too.
I'll read another question here from the chat. What about a cemetery with lots of stories I haven't been able to verify? Which category?
So Emma may have a clear answer to this. I would say that sounds definitely like it's probably legends and lore, but you would need to find some kind of sources. And again, you're trying to prove that those stories are told, not necessarily trying to prove that those stories are true. So if you can find any local publications that maybe have those stories in them, or
Yeah, anything that's proven to have a lasting impact on the community and that's been retold over time. Maybe you could focus on like certain people that were interred there at the cemetery and a folkloric aspect of their life and um, anything along those lines. Yeah.
Opening it up to any other questions. We have a
yeah.
additional. So interviews, so a follow-up to the last question. So interviews with storytellers.
In terms of being sources, I'd say those would probably count as primary sources.
Yeah, I think that would qualify. If you have like a transcription or a recording that documents what those storytellers said, that would be great.
Okay, great. Last call for any other questions. If you do have, oh, thank you so much. Thank you. It's a pleasure to do the webinar for all of you about Texas folklore and the Legends and Lore program. As we mentioned earlier, this webinar has been recorded and we will make this available to all of you. Emma's contact information is on this slide, so please feel free to reach out with additional questions. We're so happy to answer them and help you get ready for the next grant round and the next grant round after that. Please do reach out. And thank you for joining us for today's webinar. Thank you, Becky. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you
Thank
all.
Thanks so
you.
much.